Hello everyone, back tuning into today's video. Going to have a look at the weather next week, 10 days. For today's video, this will take us to around the 27th of May. So we're heading towards the end of the month now with these week to 10 day update videos. Going to be quite a quick one because there's been no real changes overnight with model runs. It looks like high pressure will continue to be dominant at least until we get towards the end of May. But GEM has thrown something a little bit different out there this morning. I will include it in today's video. I'm not sure how serious we take it really. But I'll have more on that towards the end of the video. But the big two, the ECM and the GFS, essentially no real changes with those. And at the very end of the video, you'll see the first sort of model output for winter 2018-19. I thought I'd put that in at the end of the video just as a little bit of a surprise, but get to that at the end of the video. Just starting off with 500 bit of a height anomaly flowchart. So we've got the ECMDF here on the top and the GFS is on the bottom. 500 bit, that's 80,000 feet, is an area in the actual high pressure, low pressure. I've been moved around by the jet stream. Blue extrapolates to low pressure and red to high pressure. So these are the mean flow charts for 7 to 10 days. It takes us to around the 27th of the month from the Penn State University website. We've got below average heights here with the ECMDF up to the northwest of the country, and then above average heights a ridge from the Azores extending from the Atlantic into the UK and Western Europe. That leaves us doing something like that with the flow and with the jet stream, so unsettled conditions coming into the northern part of the country, but down across the south we're close to this ridge, so I'd expect a reasonable amount of dry and fairly warm weather as well going into the 7 to 10 day sort of time frame. This is how the GFS is looking, and again we have a large area of above average heights across central and indeed southern parts of Europe as well, with below average heights out to the northwest. That leaves us doing something like this with the flow and with the jet stream as well. So we see a lot of prolonged dry and warm weather. The ridge actually, of course, more centred towards the UK. With that situation, the jet stream is going further north as well, less of an influence from the jet stream. So that's a rather warmer and drier scenario with the high pressure almost centred over top of the country. We do have weaker heights down to the south, so that could possibly be threatening some thundery conditions into southern parts of the country at times. That's more particular, I think, through the early and middle part of next week. But as we get closer to the bank holiday weekend, we probably strengthen the ridge again for the bank holiday weekend. I will have the next update, I think it's the third update now, for late spring bank holiday weekend coming up for you tonight around 7 o'clock. GFS temperature and precipitation ensembles next couple of weeks looking like this. The red line here is a 30-year upper air temperature average, so we're starting off close to average at the moment. It was a bit chilly last night. It would be another fairly cold night tonight. By the way, we're looking at Birmingham today, not sure if I mentioned that. So quite chilly at the moment, particularly at night. It's warm in the sunshine by day. Get through to the weekend and the temperatures are lifting up, the upper air temperatures are picking up, and then essentially go through to the end of May. That's this period just here. And we're talking about above average temperatures in terms of the upper air temperatures right way through to the end of the month. That's the 1st of June just there, by which time we are seeing a little bit more scatter as you always get with these charts. So got some warm members up there, got some cooler members down there, but I think overall it is a warmer than average scene now going through towards the end of May, most certainly. Precipitation wise, lots of dry weather through the rest of this week and the weekend. Some precipitation there through the early and middle part of next week. That might be a little bit thundery down across the south, but overall that's a pretty dry looking ensemble. There's not much precipitation coming through at all right way through to the end of May. Surface temperature wise looking like this. That's 20 degrees just there, that's 10 degrees just there. So starting off a little bit on the cooler side today, but the temperatures will be lifting up in Birmingham through to the end of the week, and by the weekend we're up to 20 degrees, perhaps even a bit more than 20 degrees once again. And then we maintain that sort of level really going up towards the bank holiday weekend. Certainly upper teens, if not low 20s Celsius, just flatlining at that sort of level throughout really. So it's quite a warm scene, I think, for the final sort of week to 10 days of the month. That's how the GFS is looking for Sunday then. We're under a ridge of high pressure on Sunday. Should be a lot of dry weather coming up. Go through to the early part of next week, and the high pressure moves more towards Scandinavia, which allows gradients to slacken in the south. And this could start to generate some heavy showers, maybe even some thunderstorms across parts of England and Wales. I think for Scotland and Northern Ireland, it's probably a mostly dry scene because we're close to the ridge there. But down across the south, we might generate some quite heavy showers, possibly thunder through the early part of next week. In fact, that is an actual thundery low, I think, that we got there on Wednesday down across the southeast. So I'll have to watch out for that. There could be potential some quite big dampers. I suspect fairly well scattered, but if you was to get one, it would probably be quite slow moving and intense as well. It's very warm and humid air that we've got through the early part of next week as well. We go through to the end of next week and we look like that. So we still have the high pressure up over Scandinavia. We've still got high pressure to our west. So as you get through to bank holiday weekend, actually these ridges strengthen. So that brings us a lot of dry weather through to the bank holiday weekend. This is day 10, which is Sunday 27th of May, with high pressure again. It's well and truly dominating. It's centred just to the north of Scotland. It is bringing in perhaps a bit of a cool easterly wind across the south, but a lot of dry weather coming up with that. And I would have thought pretty warm, particularly so central and northern parts of the country. Just bank holiday Monday. And by the way, we will have our next bank holiday weekend update tonight. I just want to just mention that. Again, the high pressure dominates more or less through to the end of the month. By the time you get through to the very end of the month, though, the GFS is right in the extended range. It's 348 hours away. But by then, it is starting to turn more unsettled, and it's starting to turn cooler as well from the Atlantic. So the early first days of June, the opening of June, possibly turns a little bit cooler and a little bit more unsettled. ECWF looks like that. Again, the high pressure's ridging through the country over the weekend, so a lot of dry and fairly warm weather as well. Early next week, the pressure gradients are slackening, so again, this does suggest there's a risk at the very least of possibly having some heavy showers, maybe some thunderstorms in places too. Then we go up towards the bank holiday weekend, and we have high pressure influences close to England and Wales from the Azores high, so lots of dry, warm weather there. A little bit more unsettled up to the north. We saw it on the high to anomaly flow chart. The westerly flow is just heading into the northwest of Scotland in the 7 to 10 day time frame. So this means that for the north, it's a little bit more unsettled as we go into the bank holiday weekend with low pressure. Never too far away, but for England and Wales, we are close to this extension from the Azores high, and so we'd expect a lot of dry and fairly warm weather down across the south. I did say the GEM is doing something a bit different, so it starts off very much the same with high pressure dominating over the weekend. Into the early part of next week, though, it actually generates this area of low pressure down to the southwest. So the other two models, they just slacken the gradients, don't generate low pressure, but they do slacken the gradients and suggest there could be some heavy showers. But this will bring probably thundery, prolonged bouts of thundery rain, I would have thought, this area of low pressure. It's obviously it's much more unsettled. It's right over top of the country through the middle of next week. That gets out of the way, and we go up towards the bank holiday weekend, and it reverts very similar to what the ECWF is doing, with high pressure again ridging in towards the south, so a fair amount of dry weather there, but always more unsettled with those low pressures up to the north. The low pressure is deeper to the northwest of Scotland on the GEM this morning, and so therefore it would be more unsettled than the ECM or the GFS are showing. I'm not sure how seriously we take that. It starts to go over the top with those areas of low pressure right from as early as Tuesday next week, when it generates that low pressure to the southwest of Ireland, and the ECM and the GFS don't look anything like that at all. So I think it's probably gone off on a bit of a tangent. It is one of the lower rated models compared to the big two, which are the ECM and the GFS. So it may turn more unsettled than we're anticipating next week, but at the moment I think that's a low risk option. I would suggest it's most likely, but we just have those heavy showers scattered about through the early part of next week. And then finally, I did promise you that I'd show you the first chart for the winter of, so it would be the winter of 1819. You said 1718 there, but of course that's gone. So this is the latest update from Jamstech, and it's going for a really, really cold winter across most of Europe, and the British Isles is included in that. Look at all that blue that we've got there for the temperature anomaly for the winter of 2018-2019. That would be a severe winter for much of northern Europe. The only thing I'd say about that, of course, it's a very long way off. We're only into May, and at that sort of time frame, the Jamstech is known to be very often on the cold side, too cold. So I don't think we take that particularly seriously at all. What tends to happen is that when it's sort of 6 to 9 and 3 to 6 months out, it will be generating lots of cold charts. And then as you get with being sort of 1 to 3 months, that's when it reverts to a warmer option. Now, of course, we may have a severe European winter for next winter, but I don't think we take that at all seriously at the moment. I thought I'd just throw it in as a bit of fun and to raise a little bit of interest. But I think we file that away as highly unlikely to come off. If it's still showing that around October or November, then we start to get interested. But at the moment, I think we just file that away as a bit of fun. So going back to the reliable time frame, which is the sort of 7 to 10 day time frame, still the idea, although the GM's a little bit different, a little bit more unsettled, still the idea that we probably start off with some heavy showers early next week, and then probably trending towards high pressure again for the bank holiday weekend, which may be another really good bank holiday, of course, following on from the early May bank holiday. And we will have our third update for the late spring bank holiday weekend. That will be coming up for you this evening around 7 o'clock. So come back for that then. But that's all for now, and thanks for watching.